feminist, manifest, that you're supreme. You are great, taking wherever you've been. Your vision is better than anything you've seen. Standing where many have suffered and been grieved. Woman, don't bow down. Don't let them silence you.
Dumelang ma South Africa, ra le amogela mo lenaneong la rona la It's a Feminist Thing, where each week we have a conversation on the numerous ways patriarchy cripples our society. I'm joined by my feminist sisters, Fina Kodisang, Thando Kumete Linyuko, Shikwambane. Today's conversation is a tough one, and I want to give a trigger warning to you at home. We are discussing intimate partner violence and domestic abuse. To be South African is to understand violence as a rite of passage. Most of us have been affected, directly or indirectly, by intimate partner violence and domestic abuse. We encourage you to share your stories on our social media pages and keep the conversation going. I myself, I suspect like millions of other South Africans, I grew up in a household where my father was violent towards my mother. Here's what's frightening though. He was not an exception. This was something that happened very commonly around the neighborhood that we were living in. So I'm tortured, I suppose, by some of the trauma that I feel like, because you never quite recover from watching your father beating your mother. And even after all this time, I feel like it's something that has still traumatized me and lives with me.
There's a difference between domestic violence as well as intimate partner violence. You know, intimate partner violence, there's usually a romantic or sexual relationship between the two people, an intimate one at that. And with domestic violence, it's kind of violence that takes place geographically within the household. So it can be something that happens between a father and a son, a mother and daughter, or an uncle and, you know, just any random person kind of living in the house. So it's really important for us to make that distinction.
Yeah, and it's emomading arona so much that we don't even see the red flags. You know, you are gaslighted, you are in a controlling relationship, but you don't realize or you are actually being controlled. I mean, Hanegilugo University, I used to date this guy, and you know, you think it's love, right? He would fetch me from campus to res. Hageluko rese, galadiwa kisiwa campus. Hageluko campus kisiwa res. On campus, you always are with him or with his friends all the time, to the point where his friends were now my friends. I didn't have any other friend.
Which is a big sign of control, because motho ba tla o controla gore ke wena o feel ka re hey motho wa nrata o ntshwere gantle, he doesn't want me to take myself anywhere.
Later has to give a record in this. I'm like, no man, these definitions dibulela ka nna.
You know, gaslighting.
You know, it's like a psychological manipulation to distort reality. You know, you start believing that.
So ke ha motho basically a go kgodisa and make you believe that something is not happening, even though it's quite blatant. But that makes you feel like you're crazy.
Of course. But intimate partner violence is everywhere in South Africa. It's in pop culture. There are people who make songs over the incidents of intimate partner violence. We see it in our politics. We have leaders who use intimate partner violence for political point scoring. We have leaders who think that there are natural ways to assault women. You know, as if that is a better and a more acceptable form of violence.
And that's a problem, because but the leaders are so guilty of a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, that it's difficult for them because you know. And the worst thing about it is that violence.
For me, so I know rage very well. You know, quite frankly, I think it's been, you know, injected into me. And so in order for me and my partners and my exes to just not even go there, not even to enter into that realm, I kind of set rules very early on to say, number one, we are not going to use bad language in making reference to one another or even in making reference to something that we have done.
So
saying like stupid, crazy, you're so dumb, things like that. And then another thing that we don't do, we do not raise our voices when we're speaking to each other. No matter how angry we are, relax and no shouting and no getting aggressive with one another because you don't want to go there.
Listen,
I agree with you, Tando. I cannot stand swearing. So you're touching with that. Nah, uskan roja, Shem. Please, uskan roja. Uskan roja ka maka. Uskan roja ka kwaka. Anything. Roja in my love language, you know?
Ene ke a go utlwa how go dile mo ntlong e leng gore go a roga kwanwa go a rasiwa. I've inherited some of that.
Of course.
To say like hey ke gona go roga kana e ka go roka ka walla.
People respond differently to how like they were raised, you know. Some people would reject that type of, you know.
But what is scary for me is the rage that I still feel inside as an adult. You know, I mentioned earlier that you never really recover.
You need to,
But the rage that I feel, and you don't know what it's it's only through years of counseling and having to seek professional help. As I'm speaking to you right now. What impact has domestic abuse and violence had on your life? Please share your experiences and solutions with us on our social media pages. While you do that, we have Ponso Pilani with us again with a translation of our term or terms of the day.
Ere ke go amogela gape Pontsho.
Ke a leboga o se final guy.
Re teng
Re tsogile saka.
Mafoko a rona ka jeko ke.
Ka se go rena le mafoko a mabedi gonne re bua ka intimate partner violence le femicide. Ke tla simolola ka go tlhalosa gore domestic violence ke eng. Domestic violence ka Setswana ke kgokgontso e diragala mo lapeng. Me ga re lebeletse ga re aka Thando na bua Mankgatela bua ka gore go botlhokwa gore re tlhaloganye gore intimate partner violence le domestic violence ga di tshwane. Ga re lebeletse intimate partner violence re ka ibitsa ke gore ke go sotliwa ke molekane wa gago. Me la bobedi le fuka la ka jeko ke femicide aka re buile. And femicide in very simple terms ke polao ya basadi kapa batho ba bomme. Re tlhaloganye as the killing of women.
Zulu ngachaza ngathi ene ukuhlukumeza umuntu osukuthandana naye yabona that's intimate partner violence, and then you'd say ukuhlukumeza umuntu osukuhlalisana naye umuntu osukuhlala naye as domestic violence.
Ponto ware intimate partner violence ke eng ka Setswana?
Ke go sutliwa ke molekane wa gago. Aka Thando na re tlhalosetsa gore domestic violence le intimate partner violence ga di a fapogananyana bikinyana yana. Domestic violence e ka tswa go motho molomong, me intimate partner violence e tswa go mothong o ratanang le ene o e leng molekane wa gago.
But isn't there a contradiction in terms? You can imagine like motho go ratang ke ena go sutlang. Ke ntwe makatsang, and why has it become so acceptable? We go re ra amogela gore ke silo se se diragalang ka bongata mo South Africa.
We'd like to hear how you translate this term in your own language. Leave a comment on our social media pages and let's keep the conversation going.
Later in the show, we will discuss femicide and why South Africa's femicide rate is amongst the highest in the world. But before that, we speak about how we can get involved in ending domestic violence within our communities. Stay tuned.
Don't let them silence you. Don't let them silence you.
Thank you for tuning back in. Earlier, we discussed the various forms of domestic abuse and intimate partner violence. We want to turn our attention now to the psychology of what happens between couples once violence becomes part of their relationship.
If you don't mind sharing, ladies, what has been your worst experience with intimate partner violence?
I've had 3 relationships, and every single relationship has been violent. Where they start off like a completely normal person, you're in a normal relationship, you're falling in love. This is the most amazing man. He's kind, he's giving you money, he's taking care of you. And then you make one small mistake, or you're a little bit too friendly, or you hug a guy who you're not supposed to hug, and then all of a sudden you're called a B or you're a whore. The violence, it starts with grabbing you aggressively. They start rough handling you. And my worst experience was when I was 8 months pregnant, and I'd found another woman's underwear in the house of where my partner was living. And I confronted him. I'm like, I'm 8 months pregnant. How can you do something? And obviously the verbal abuse first started. You're imagining things, it's not real, she's just using the space to store her clothes. And then I'm like, no, but it doesn't make sense. Because you know, at 8 months, he dragged me across the floor and he kicked me in my stomach. The fact that I would allow myself to even be in a situation like that was embarrassing for me. I was ashamed.
What was your family's role, and what happened, and how do you think family can support partners and relationships?
I confronted his family about it, and when I told his mother that your son is using me, got a problem, the first thing she told me was, how could you let this happen?
I come from a very supportive family. I wish I had trusted them enough the first incident of violence, because I should have nipped it in the bud right there.
Even through the violence, when I told his mother that this is what happened, he got violent, she didn't say anything. She should have told him, sit down, shut up, this is not how you treat women, I didn't raise you like that. But she allowed it. And behind every trash man is a mother that enables that. She allows him to do what he does. And the justice system, it's not just intimate partner violence, it's now systemic abuse. The courts are filled with women and children weekly crying. And for me, the best thing I did was stood up and walk away. From all the pressure from the community, try and make it work, save it, it's worth something. No, it's not. This is not worth it. So stand tall, ladies. Mm-hmm. Guys are champions.
Intimate partner violence is one of the most common forms of violence against women. And whilst research by the World Health Organization has found that it is a widespread global problem, we have particularly high rates here at home. Our guest, Vanessa Govender, wrote a harrowing memoir, Beaten But Not Broken, detailing her experience of being in a violent and abusive relationship, an experience that is sadly shared by many. She joins us now.
Welcome to It's a Feminist Thing, Vanessa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Listen, this was such a courageous move on your part to write a book about something so intimate. I just wanted to know why. Why did you decide to write this book and share the story with us?
I felt not just as a survivor, but as a journalist. This was perhaps one of the most critical and important stories, not just of my journalism career, but of my life. And I owed it. I owed it to people, not just within my conservative community, but I owed it to all South African women who are seemingly trapped in this situation, the families who have had to bury their daughters and their loved ones because of domestic violence, to actually break the silence and speak out. And the more of us that do this, especially women who are perceived to be in positions of power, influence, or authority, the more of us that stand up and speak out, hopefully the more difference we make in making it easier for other women to step out of the shadows. We're not just statistics, we're real people. We're real people who are carrying this trauma and who are forced to get on with normal life and carry on like nothing's ever happened, when in fact something absolutely catastrophic has happened and continues to happen.
And I can imagine it's not easy, Vanessa. So what is the psychology of an IPV victim staying in an abusive relationship?
We stay because we believe the promises that it's going to change. We stay because we believe we will actually be the ones to save these men, to change them, to change their behavior. We stay because, well, I don't know so much that it's love. I think we convince ourselves we love these guys. For me, this was my first boyfriend. He was my first intimate partner. In my community, you don't just go out with a guy, or you don't just have intimate relations with a guy and not speak with him for the rest of your life. We were not taught that it's okay to leave. It's okay to walk away. You are with someone, you're being seen with them, you're forced to stay with them. It's these unwritten rules that our community places on us that keeps us stuck, and by writing about it and by owning up to the fact that, yes, I was intimate with him out of marriage, I kind of took away from all these obstacles that make it so intrinsically difficult for women to speak up, because we're so ashamed, especially when it comes to sex. We're still very closeted. Patriarchy has put us in this position where we're not allowed to have sex out of marriage, where we're not allowed to have more than one partner, where, God forbid, we shouldn't even enjoy sex.
What are some of the challenges that women face when they decide to leave?
Getting away, getting out, and staying away is probably the biggest and most critical challenge, because it's very easy to get sucked in. And especially when you have no self-worth, no self-esteem, because all of that, it's not just the physical abuse. Please understand, it's never just about the physical abuse. These men are manipulative and cunning when it comes to breaking down your defenses emotionally and mentally. So much so that the person who inflicts the physical trauma on you is arguably the person who also offers you comfort and solace. Because remember, there are things that get thrown in your face like, no one's ever going to love you like me. And you think you can't do any better. And so that's why a lot of women get sucked back in.
How does one then reconcile themselves with becoming intimate with someone else after they've been through all of that trauma and tried hard to break away from, an abuser?
Some of us go off the rails. We become reckless. We become almost irresponsible, because we kind of want to make up, for time lost. We want to make up, we want to seek validation. That's probably the better way of saying it. We are looking for validation. We get into relationships. We can never keep those relationships because there's always this claustrophobic feeling. You never know what's going to happen next or what's going to come next. For me, I was fortunate enough to find somebody that I was very open with about everything that had happened to me. So there was a no-holds-barred, a brutally honest relationship, which still exists. And when you're allowed to shine, when you're allowed to be you, when you are not being molded, shaped, and shifted to fit another person, it's amazing how you blossom. So it's not an easy thing, and I can only speak to how I handle things and how I dealt with things. For me, I literally made up for lost time, and I was seeking validation, in ways that were not probably very responsible or safe for that matter. Some women will just shut up and, shut themselves away. Women find their own healing journeys. There's no one size fits all.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Vanessa. And not only for sharing, but your bravery in writing your own experiences. I hope a lot of women will learn from this and learn to also share their own experiences. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We know that violence women experience in intimate relationships affects them mentally and physically, and it affects their ability to fully participate in society. More than that, it affects not only the individuals involved, but their families and communities. And this is why communities and societies as a whole needs to get involved in putting a stop to violence. Domestic violence is never a private matter. After the break, we look at why.
Don't let them silence you. Don't let them silence you.
Most of us grew up watching Soul City. I remember growing up watching Soul City myself. And you'll remember, I'm sure, a story where Soul City was calling everyone to action to stop the culture of silence. In a community where we know that women are being abused, Soul City was challenging us on taking action to support the women that are every day facing this scourge. Let's watch this insert.
Thabang and Matlakala have 3 children. Matlakala works at the Soul City Clinic. Thabang is a teacher and a role model in the community.
Good morning.
Morning. It's the first day to your new school, eh?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Come over here.
But the Seritis are not the happy family that they seem. Thabang abuses his wife emotionally and physically.
It's just that you say under pressure.
Matlakala. Ko tshweditse hore o ska discussa business yaka le batho ba bangwe. It's between you and me.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Thabang.
Use useless. How mamele Matlakala. Wow, someone.
Oh, no. No, Daddy, stop!
Wow, someone. What's a kitiki man? What's a toto man? How no?
Matlakala. Kwenzakaleni? Nginceba akunenix.
Mhlawumbe ungathakula nix. Bekunjani une-blue eye ebusweni?
Nginceba nanto.
Babysitting. It's not my type of job.
The abuse continues despite Thabang's promises to stop, and the community outside witnesses silently.
It's none of our business.
Mrs. Ritchie, we see a lot of violence at this hospital. A lot of it domestic violence. Women being hurt by their husbands or boyfriends. In fact, it has become so common that I've started to ask all women who are injured if they need help in this respect.
Doctor, I told you I was mugged. I used to tell myself that it's gonna get better, everything was gonna be okay. I just needed to do the right thing.
When Matlakala hears the story of another abused woman, she recognizes not only the physical injuries, but also the self-blame, that all too familiar damaged self-esteem. It is a turning point. She takes the big step of challenging her neighbors at a community policy forum. Empowered by the new Domestic Violence Act, Matlakala gets a protection order against her husband. This time, he gets a shot.
This protection order is at the police station. You think this is going to stop you, Matlakala? You think this piece of paper is going to stop me? Jonga. Eh? Do you see what you've done to me? Eh? Do you see what you've done to me? What is happening between me and you? It's got nothing to do with anybody.
She's my wife. Chema kubana. Lele bothatanyana fela re le argument na le matlakala singene let's go.
More clippery warning. I'm choking because I'm like, how can he just say ke bothatanyana fela? You know, and bothatanyana as if matlakala's pain, even the scars and the bruises mean nothing. Because I think that's what men do, right? They minimize the pain that their actions cause.
It actually frightens me that bana ba nagana gore a woman needs to be disciplined. You know, that this obsessional idea of control, wanting to have complete control over who the victim speaks to, who they open up to, what they do, and if they do not do that, then they need to be disciplined in order to behave a certain way.
It's control.
Yeah, exactly, and that cannot be. That absolutely cannot be. And we need proper legal interventions when things like that happen. We need proper legal interventions to protect victims.
We did issue a trigger warning at the beginning of the episode, and it requires more warning again to say that this episode will be triggering for a lot of people. We're now joined in our Elders Corner by Professor Naima Abrams.
Violence against women is a societal issue that requires a multi-sectoral response. Joining us in the Elders Corner is Professor Naima Abrams, Director of the Gender and Health Research Unit for the SA Medical Research Council. Welcome, Prof. Abrams.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Prof, IPV is not a private matter. We must all get involved, but the question is, how?
That's right. It's not a private matter. It was maybe construed about 40, 50 years ago that it was a private matter. It's not. Yeah. It is a matter that affects so many women in our country and across the globe that it is something that every one of us must deal with. I'm a researcher. I have a role, you have a role to bring this to the community, to raise it, to be an activist. And so we all have a role to eradicate violence against women.
Professor, so why are IPV rates so high in South Africa? I mean, let's just be honest, like, why are men hitting women?
So we know a lot now about why this happens. We've all kind of known, but as a researcher, there is no doubt. The bottom line, the one single factor is gender inequality. Gender inequality, which is fed by patriarchy, it is fed by men's entitlement, it is fed by the value of women. And so to control a woman to do what men consider they should be doing, they use violence.
Yeah.
And it's power. It's about power, differentials. The other thing about South Africa is we are a violent society, not just against women, against children, men against men as well.
So, Professor, there are a number of legal documents that exist in South Africa, the Constitution being one of them. How do we make them accessible to our own lived experiences and realities on the ground?
We have a great constitution, and our constitution is supported by great laws to protect women, to protect children, right? What we now have is a national strategic plan.
Yeah.
Last year, this time, we were so busy with finalizing that plan. And that plan provides a framework for changing the laws into action. But remember, action cannot happen. Interventions cannot happen without money.
Yes.
Without leadership. Without putting money to what we're saying. So it is about resources and it is working with leaderships that believe, as we believe, in what must happen. It's a complex problem, violence against women, so it requires a complex response, right?
Yes.
It's not just a campaign with billboards on the N1 or the N2. It's not just handing out information pamphlets. It requires, like you said right at the beginning, I think Nico said it at the beginning, it requires a multi-sectorial response.
Definitely. Look, Professor, research, data, money, different departments working together, it really is a complex problem. And thank you so much for highlighting and showing that to us. Thank you for your time and for joining the conversation, Professor.
That's a pleasure. Best of luck with all your programs, and thanks for contributing to this very important issue.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you so much, Prof. The cost of domestic violence is borne by all parts of society. And this is why domestic abuse is not a private matter. When we return, we discuss femicide. Why are South African women being killed at such an alarming rate? Stay tuned.
Don't let them silence you. Don't let them silence you.
We are inundated with headlines of women being murdered at the hands of men closest to them. Our ally, Mteto Chimese, is here to provide insights into why men act with so much impunity and what possible solutions we can look at to solve this problem.
Welcome, Mteto, and thank you very much for joining us again today.
Thank you.
Ke batla go botsa question as motho ile ngore ke mosadi and go le di conversations ile ngore nka se khone go kena mo tsona. Umjita wa bua le majita all the time. Wena how botsa, and a psychologist on top of that. Bari go etsagalang, why is it that men seem to be acting with such impunity?
The fundamental problem that I see in the majita, Tina's mascula, even in the sex, as an example, it's never about pleasing your partner in the context of a woman. It's always, language I can't even use it on TV, you know. It's always about doing something to a woman. And I think mascula, no one actually takes time to give us life skills to relate one, to understand who we are, and thirdly, to negotiate in the independence of women and how we understand women. That is my overall sense of, with all the different things that I hear, the different details, at the core of it, amajita, we see abantu ababhinqileyo as extension yethu. Even in sex, we satisfy ourselves in sex. It's about the numbers, it's about the rounds. It's never about how do you relate with your partner. But when it comes to femicide as an example, or even rape, I find with amajita, in South Africa, we have a sense of amajita, they feel they have to respond to the movement of women standing up for their rights. Women are just being punished for standing up for their rights, if I were to be brutal about it, because what
does it mean though when black men say one twayela? What does it mean to a man?
I'll make an example. In Tanzania, I'm raised in NU7. There, you have to be violent to survive, to live. I don't mean in relation to women, when I is out in relation to Amanya Majid.
Right.
We know that men are violent, and we have to defend ourselves against the violence. Any man, whether from Soweto, Alex, or wherever I've been, any man will tell you, once a man says,
trouble is coming.
You know that it's then going to get physical. So if violence is not violence when it gets physical, if violence gets violent at the time of us not seeing the value and the humanity of other people. And I mean, I make reference to this thing to the Christian people that I work with. I say, look, if you say tanda umakhelwane wakho njengoba uzithanda, so whatever it is then that I do that reflects ukuthi ngimthandi lo muntu is a reflection on me. So fundamentally we have a problem with the masculinity in this country, and black masculinity in particular has been neglected. No one osihlanganisayo, even entabeni lapha nasekumoshakele. Kunabantu who are coming from jail who sit with intwana baba teach things that are not supposed to be taught there about you must sleep with women of lesser value, if not your real woman after uphumentabeng. That thing is not sanctioned by our culture.
It means that black men do not believe in the equality of the sexes.
Women have more chances of being killed by their partners than being killed by a stranger or dying in a car accident or all those things combined. Clearly there is a problem.
Right.
In the context of love. And Amachita are not interested because they don't see what is the gain for them. We need to create a different kind of a generation of young boys. Psychologically, we all know as psychologists, as mental health practitioners, we all agree that the first 7 years are critical. We need to look, what is it that we are teaching boys from 0 to 7 when they start to go to schools? If indoda irapile, why kumele idle nathi esithebeni makunomsebenzi? Because if singaqala ngento ezinjalo, if singamajita siblomile tavern, if we know umthetho urapile, then umthetho angablomi nathi. Then you need to isolate those people because that's one way in which you're going to deal with these violent people. Because a lot of black men that I talk to are not necessarily violent actively, but they are violent by being complicit, by being quiet, unless go reach umuntu wakhe or umuntu wasekhaya, or then they want to get involved.
It's unfortunate we don't have a lot of time, but you already touched on some of the solutions. You spoke about the curriculum. You know, what could be some of the solutions? Where do we start to solve this huge problem?
Our fathers, abo baba bethu nabomkhulu bethu nabo-uncle bethu need to talk to us. They need to tell us zintoni abazenzileyo ezezi problems bona abazifundileyo amaphutha wabo. Nathi kumele sikhulume with the younger ones about amaphutha wethu, and then we must then let it be a conscious effort ukuthi collectively we must care about black kids abangabafana because violence is the option now, and as we see, I mean, every day there's somebody who's missing, there's somebody who's raped, there's somebody who's killed. So until we create a generation of younger boys who are going to be compassionate, who are going to know about human rights, that has to be done at church, in soccer clubs, in rugby clubs, in boxing, in sports clubs, so that it's a consistent message. But it can't be something that is done by psychologists because amakaya way too have got violent men.
Mteto, thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. Femicide is so much a part of our reality that I'm actually afraid we've become desensitized to it. We have heard our allies' thoughts on how we can begin to address it. I also want to know what you at home think we should do. Keep engaging with us on social media. The question is, what are the practical interventions we should consider?
Don't let them silence you. Don't let them silence you.
You are tuned into It's a Feminist Thing. Our aim is to dismantle patriarchy by exposing the root cause of the problem and finding ways to give power to those who are discriminated against. Fina, Khumuto, Nico, sizoyithini indaba? What's the way forward?
I think I'm tired of being asked as a woman for the solutions when men are clearly the vast majority of the perpetrators. I really want men to be the ones to come up with solutions, man. This is a man problem.
Can we trust men to come up with solutions?
I don't care. I'm tired. Because it's like when it's something that is so them.
I also think that can we at least start by collecting the data? Can we at least start by doing a proper data analysis? And can SAPs and legal interventions be based on the data that we collect? We've been speaking about a sex offenders list for years. Nothing has been done about it.
But hold on, Nico.
And just hold on, Sandra, but like the intimate partner violence perpetrators also need to be part of the sex offenders list.
But, you know, the thing is that one of the reasons why we are hopeless is because government refuses to take out the money necessary to do the work. Where is that 1.6 billion rand, okay? And for those people who are experts, who know how to get this work done, there's always red tape and there's barriers. It's almost like the government or the people that are responsible, even corporates, like, you know, that can fund the fight against GBV and other forms of violence, are unwilling to contribute to it. So that's where the hopelessness comes from. When the people who are at the top refuse to give financially or even to give like willingness.
Because they don't see it as a legitimate societal issue.
Exactly.
I mean, I align myself to you, Khomotso, and I liked what Mteto also said, you know, when he was saying we should isolate these men.
Yeah.
You know, call them out and don't allow them into spaces where men who are not abusing women are sitting. Because if they don't do it that way, you know, they keep encouraging it. And for now, I think we must actually remove them from the homes. You know how when there's intimate partner violence, we go and remove the women and the children. I mean, for now, it's like secondary victimization. Wasutliwa, osutliwa hape, because utlogela ntlo ya hao. Wena le bana ba hao must start a new life somewhere. Why ever santi yena o eling problem? Ebe yena ayang ko shelter.
But Fina, I actually want to throw an even bigger curveball, is to say that when someone commits a crime, they commit a crime according to elements, you know, as is provided for by the law.
Exactly.
And when someone confesses, it means that they admit to all of the elements of that crime. So when someone makes a confession publicly to say, I have done X, Y, Z, that person ought to be charged by the state, whether a woman has laid a charge or not. It is unacceptable that we can say that a woman bears the sole responsibility of ensuring that the perpetrator of violence against her goes to jail.
Solutions, we now know that technology is one of the things we can use. We have a friendly, not judgmental bot that uses artificial intelligence, roboto basically. It identifies signs of abuse and where to go for help. To use Rainbow, all you do is go to Facebook Messenger, type Hi Rainbow. It's a free service available 24/7 as part of Soul City's Feminist Tech Solutions to End Intimate Partner Violence. We do this in partnership with AI for Good, a UK-based organization.
Hitting women is the vilest form of violence, and it thrives on secrecy and manipulation. People who grow up watching their parents get beaten are traumatized for life. I should know. I am that child. And even though all of this happened over 45 years ago, the images in my mind are still as vivid as if it happened recently. Very few abusers start by beating their partners from the onset. By the time the situation becomes physical, there would have been many red flags: controlling behavior, emotional terrorism, and gaslighting of the worst sort. The truth is that when you see the first signs, you ignore them or you try to change your behavior to appease the abuser. Many women who try to leave are often told by their family and friends to begazela, try a little harder, don't give up on your relationship. Maybe it's because we were raised with such a skewed concept of what love is that we even expect love to hurt. One of my favorite quotes from Oprah Winfrey is, people who love you don't treat you badly. Love doesn't hurt. It's supposed to feel good. We need a new love language to express our feelings for and to each other. We shouldn't have to fear our partners, and our partners should not have to fear us. Let's take a look at what we will be discussing next week.
Hello, Coco, how are you? Hello, my baby. How's Paul? Did you guys get the money I sent for his school books? No, actually, it's fine. I'll send more later on in the week. I don't know if I'll be able to get leave from work, but I'll try. Coco, please give Paul a kiss for me and tell him Mama loves him. Okay, bye.
From all of us at It's a Feminist Thing, have a good evening and take care of each other.